Can I do one push-up? No. Do I think I could cut off a zombie head? Yes. Hi, I'm Chloe Gong. I am the author of COLDWIRE, and I'm here with Simon Teen ranking dystopian tropes. Okay. Climate disaster. So this is when characters are displaced after some sort of mass ecological event, floods, tsunamis, earthquakes, maybe. I would say this might not be the worst thing to have to survive. It depends. It depends on if it keeps happening or not. But I would put it firmly in the middle. We're probably less likely to feel that characters are gonna, just get snapped away by a flood. But it's not great either. So I'll rank it C. Coming of age ceremony. Okay, this is a classic. I mean, we see this with Divergent. You bleed into those separate bowls to declare your allegiance to something. I think it's a teen classic. You want to define yourself by something. I would give it an A ranking. I feel like teens love it. I love it. Social experiment. This one is interesting. It is when oftentimes it is some big conglomerate corporation entity that is messing with some teenagers for their own gain. This is interesting. I would rank it as an A tier trope. It's not quite S tier for me yet, but I do enjoy it and I would like to see more. She said, hopefully not sociopathically. Ooh, false utopia. This is a very learned one. I love it. False utopia, if I am understanding correctly, is the trope in dystopia where the characters believe that they are in a perfect society of some sort, and they're thinking, wow, it's so great that we have not had war in 300 years, and yippee, I'm gonna go and get my court-mandated bread today and make a nice little soup with my family. And as you're slowly progressing through the pages, you realize, oh, it feels like a utopia because it's a dystopia, because so much has been controlled by the government. This is a very interesting trope to me because I feel as though it is the one closest to what our future could look like in our tech-heavy society, right? We think things are so easy now. I can call an Uber that's basically a taxi for my sandwich to get here. We now have autonomous cars that are going to drive people around. And we're going to get into such a level of comfort that we're thinking, life is great. And in reality, it's because the companies are controlling everything and telling us what to think, and the algorithms are, brainwashing us. So all to say, I think books exploring this are great. I would give this a S tier ranking. I would love to see more of them because it's a very tough line to walk, and when you do that switch over correctly, when the characters realize they're in dystopia, beautiful. Okay, competition and trials. So this trope is when a bunch of people are forced to compete for something, or they're forced to trial their talents or something. Scarce product, lots of demand. That's what the trope is. I would rank this quite low in the dystopian tropes ranking because I think we have seen a lot of it and we're kind of shoving it off to YA fantasy recently. So me personally, I'm like, we've seen enough of you. I'll give it a D, but it's not an F. Unhappy endings. I'm a big fan of unhappy endings. I'm kidding. I'm a big fan of tragedy and of crying and of flipping the last page and being like, what the beep did I just read, right? And you can put a beep in there. I just didn't swear in case, you didn't want to put a beep in there. Unhappy endings have their place in larger dystopia, but in YA dystopia specifically, I will say that the optimism is sometimes the point. Dystopia is inherently very, very dark, and it is looking at a societal collapse. But when we are writing for teenagers, there still needs to be a seed of, here's what your role is in the society, and here's how you can break out. Here's what you can do, rather than sitting by and letting your society happen to you. F ranking. In concept, okay? Aliens. So I think this is self-explanatory as a trope. It's when there are aliens and they invade. I actually just recently watched a show about aliens, and I really appreciated that it was more about the outbreak story than it was about like what does society look like once aliens have taken over, which I think would be kind of hard to do, of course, because aliens could be anything, right? You can imagine them anyhow. I've yet to see something that is super, super interesting when it comes to what does being alien mean. I would love to see that. I would rank this as a tier in concept because I do like it. That's all I filtered out. I ran out of thoughts to have. Revolution, S tier. So revolution is also self-explanatory. It's when, you know, you have a book and you have a government and the government sucks, and then you have people that say, hey guys, this government sucks, and then they're like, why don't we overthrow them? And then they do. They overthrow them, and it could take one book, it could take 3 books, it could take 6 books, but eventually heads roll. Writing about revolution is important because when we are writing dystopia at all, there is so much to explore in the space when it comes to what does a dystopia look like and what does the next step look like if you find yourself in something like that as a society. Dystopian literature forever has always been responding to current times in some way. And when authors are looking at these ideas, they're also looking at, well, what is the roadmap forward when you do find yourself in these situations where there's oppression and oppression of speech and oppression of movement and all of these things. And normally the larger idea above all of it is what does revolution look like to change something like that. So, Esther. Okay. Ooh. Zombie. So, I guess also self-explanatory. The zombie trope is when there are zombies and they're going around and eating people's brains and you have to fight them to survive. I love zombie media. I will say, I love zombie media most when they're looking at day 1 of an outbreak. It feels so good to watch characters freak out and have a terrible life, because then I'm like cozy on my couch and I'm like, hey, like we don't have a zombie apocalypse, right? So I specifically love the zombie outbreak stories, and I think a lot of times as zombie media goes forward into like 6 months, 1 year, 20 years after the outbreak, I'm like, man, now it's just man versus man again. Like we're just looping it back always. So I would give this a B tier ranking because I like it, but it's not my favorite dystopian trope. I like it in my horror spaces more.
Would you be able to survive a zombie apocalypse?
You know, the crazy part of me says yes. Can I do 1 push-up? No. Do I think I could cut off a zombie head? Yes. AI. So last but not least, our trope here is AI. And often in dystopia, this will refer to a futuristic society of some sort that has started to explore artificial intelligence in their society. Maybe they have an over-reliance on it. Maybe it controls some part of their society. Maybe they live in a virtual reality that was in some way invented by AI. So I would say that this is an S-tier trope. Why? Why, you ask? Why is this an S-tier trope despite how we are seeing headlines about how AI is ruining our current world? Well, it's because fiction and the beauty of dystopian fiction is to really interrogate an idea and to talk about why is this something that we need to think about now before our current society is starting to imitate the books that we are seeing. And people don't believe me sometimes when I say that COLDWIRE was actually conceptualized way back, maybe in 2019, 2020, and outlined in 2022, long before we were seeing these headlines about AI. And the concepts that are examined in this book actually had nothing to do with what we are now currently seeing in the headlines. I did come up with Upcountry before Zuckerberg came up with the metaverse, so I will always have to hold that tight to my chest. But I think this is a trope that I would like to see more of, because as technology is progressing in our current society, I think it's important to write dystopians that are really head-on examining the effects of technology, and we want to see authors reckoning with these ideas, with the destruction and the environmental impact and the consequences of letting tech overlords essentially control our society. And when I say we, I do mean human authors. Please and thank you. I forgot what the last line was, so I refigured it.